Welcome back to SwitchTop. Your Switch deserves better than sitting on a shelf. These 15 indie games are some of the best experiences gaming has to offer. Intense, emotional, clever, and wildly different from each other. Let's get into it. Blasphemous 2 is a dark metroidvania set in Custodia, a grotesque world soaked in religious imagery and suffering. You're back as the Penitent One, a warrior of penance who woke up in a strange new land, thrust back into the brutal cycle of death and resurrection. The mission this time is to stop the birth of a new miracle child, tied to a divine force called the Miracle. The world is dense with lore, hidden in item descriptions and NPC encounters, so if you enjoy piecing stories together yourself, this is your game. What changed from the first game is big. Instead of one sword, you now start by picking from 3 different weapons, and each one actually unlocks different paths through the world. Combat feels smoother and more varied than the original, with magic spells, upgradable skills, and a more forgiving death system that doesn't punish you as hard for failing. Katana Zero is a 2D action platformer where you play as a samurai assassin called the Dragon, a guy who gets daily injections of a mysterious drug from his therapist, who also happens to be handing him his kill targets. The game looks neon noir, runs on a sick synth soundtrack, and every level plays like a deadly puzzle. The core mechanic is this: you die in one hit, but so do most enemies, and you can slow down time to dodge bullets and reflect them back. When you fail a room, time rewinds like a VHS tape rewinding, and the game actually weaves that rewind mechanic directly into the story in a really clever way. Between levels, there are dialogue scenes where you can interrupt conversations, rush through them, or wait for more options. And what you choose shapes how the dragon comes across. The story gets surprisingly dark and layered. Planet of Lana II. This is a cinematic puzzle platformer where you play as Lana, a girl traveling with her small creature companion Mui through a planet called Novo. 2 years after the events of the first game, new technology has stirred conflict between tribes, and greed is starting to tear the world apart. The whole story is told without any dialogue. You can understand, characters speak in an alien language, and meaning comes through animation, music, and body language. It's completely wordless storytelling, and it works incredibly well. Lana is more agile this time around, with wall jumps, slides, and faster movement that makes exploration feel fluid. Mui can transform into different forms: a fish, a flying insect, even pilot robots, and that's the core of the puzzle design. You're always combining Lana's movement with Mui's abilities to solve environmental puzzles. Cuphead is one of those games that you either love or you absolutely struggle with, sometimes both at the same time. The whole thing is designed to look like a 1930s cartoon, hand-drawn frame by frame, and the art is genuinely stunning. You play as Cuphead and his brother Mugman, 2 brothers who gambled at the Devil's Casino, lost, and now have to collect soul contracts from others to pay off their debt. Every boss has their own chapter and personality, and the fights are wild, unpredictable, and full of pattern recognition. The game is hard, like genuinely, properly hard. Each boss is essentially its own gauntlet of multiple phases that you have to learn and survive. You have a basic shoot, a charged shot, a parry mechanic for pink objects, and a dash. That's it. And the skill comes from managing all of them at once. There are also run and gun stages mixed in, but the bosses are the main event. Ori and the Blind Forest is one of the most emotionally charged games on the Switch, and it opens with one of the most gut-punching introductions in gaming. You're playing as Ori, a small white guardian creature of the forest, who gets separated from a mother figure and has to find their way through a dying, crumbling world to restore it. The story is told mostly through visuals and narration, and it doesn't hold back emotionally. Gameplay-wise, it's a fluid, precise platformer with a big emphasis on movement. As you progress, Ori gains new abilities: wall jumping, charging, climbing, and the world opens up more the further you go. Combat exists, but it's secondary. The real craft is in how the movement feels and how beautifully the world is designed around it. There are also some of the best escape sequences in any platformer, moments where the environment collapses and you have to run, leap, and react in real time to survive. Mio, Memories in Orbit. You play as Mio, a small female robot who wakes up with no memory aboard a massive space ark called the Vessel, a ship that was once maintained by AI caretakers called the Pearls, now overgrown with wild vegetation and full of rogue machines. Nobody knows what happened to the Pearls. The vessel is heading for shutdown, and Mio has to explore its depths, revive its lost memories, and figure out who she is and what this place was. The art style is hand-drawn in a way that pulls from comic books and has this incredible visual identity: lush, decaying, beautiful. The movement system is built around aerial combat. You can recharge your double jumps by hitting objects mid-air, which rewards keeping the action flowing. Mio gets new abilities by defeating bosses, grappling with hair tendril, climbing walls and ceilings, gliding.
Little sapling who wished to save the sun.
Chained Echoes is a throwback JRPG made almost entirely by one person, and that fact becomes more impressive the longer you play it. The game is set in the continent of Volandis, a world where 3 nations have been at war for generations. The story follows a group of characters, soldiers, mercenaries, and outlaws, caught up in events far bigger than any of them expected, dealing with a war-weary world, lost technology, and some genuinely surprising twists. The pixel art and the music nail that classic 16-bit era SNES feel. Combat uses a traditional turn-based system with a twist, an overdrive meter called the status bar that you need to keep in an OK zone by varying your attacks. Go too aggressive and you become overheated, too passive and you get weakened. It keeps every fight active and punishes autopilot. You also get access to mechs called Sky Armors pretty early, and mech combat has its own mechanics and upgrade tree. Dave the Diver is a game that probably shouldn't work as well as it does. You play as Dave, a chubby, lovable diver who spends his days exploring a mysterious, ever-changing ocean trench called the Blue Hole, and his evenings running a sushi restaurant with his friend Bancho. Those two halves, ocean exploration during the day and restaurant management at night, feed into each other constantly. Fish you catch become dishes on the menu. Money from the restaurant funds better gear. Better gear lets you dive deeper and find rarer ingredients. The ocean itself changes every time you dive, in different layouts, different creatures, different depths. You'll find all kinds of underwater life, from small fish to massive bosses, and you interact with them through a mix of hunting, trapping, and sometimes just surviving. The game layers in more mechanics as you go: farming, VIP customers, ingredient sourcing, side missions, and somehow balances all of it without ever feeling overwhelming. Vampire Survivors looks like a bad mobile game from 2010. That description is completely misleading. It's a reverse bullet hell auto-battler, where you move your character and every weapon fires automatically. You pick upgrades as you level up, and each run turns your character from a fragile survivor into an absolute engine of destruction. You start with one weapon and one stat boost per level, and by the end of a run, you're covered in rotating shields, bouncing fireballs, lightning chains, and a screen full of effects so chaotic you can barely see what's happening. The game has dozens of characters, each starting with a different weapon and stats, and dozens of weapons, many of which can be evolved into a more powerful form if you combine them with the right passive item. Maps have their own hazards and mechanics. There are secret characters and weapons to unlock. The loop is simple to understand, but surprisingly deep to optimize. Balatro is a poker-based roguelike deck builder, and it has absolutely no right to be this addictive. You're playing poker hands against escalating blind requirements, but the real game is in how you modify your deck and your jokers to hit increasingly absurd score multipliers. You collect joker cards between rounds that change the rules. Some multiply certain hand types, some add effects to specific cards, some chain together in ways that produce numbers so big they stop making sense. The actual poker is almost incidental. You use poker hand rankings pairs, straights, flushes, full houses, as the engine, but what you're actually doing is building a system where everything multiplies everything else exponentially. There are tarots, spectral cards, vouchers, and planets that alter the math further. Each run with a different deck type feels mechanically different. There's no story, no characters, just you and a wildly expressive system of numbers. Slay the Spire was one of the games that made deck builder roguelikes mainstream, and it still holds up as one of the best in the genre. You climb a procedurally generated spire, fighting enemies, picking cards to add to your deck, and finding relics that modify how your run works. There are 4 different characters, each with a completely separate card pool and playstyle. The Ironclad leans into strength and blocking, the Silent into poison and shivs, the Defect into orbs and energy management, and the Watcher into stance switching that can make her either incredibly powerful or leave her taking massive damage. Every run is about building synergy, finding cards and relics that amplify each other, and the game is excellent at letting you discover those combinations naturally. The combat is all math and prediction. Enemies telegraph their next move, so you're always planning ahead. It's turn-based, but rarely slow. Sea of Stars is a love letter to classic RPGs that manages to carve out its own identity. Set in the world of Evermist and beyond, it follows Zale and Valir, 2 Solstice warriors who are destined to fight a dark alchemist called the Fleshmancer. It sounds familiar, and some story beats are, but the game leans into its inspirations with full confidence and has enough of its own surprises to keep you invested. The combat system is the standout. It's turn-based but has a timed hit mechanic where you press buttons in sync with attacks to boost damage or reduce incoming hits. Enemy attacks show breakable combo locks, colored icons you have to hit with matching damage types to reduce how powerful their attacks are. Every fight has active participation beyond just selecting a move. The world is gorgeous, packed with towns and secrets, and the 2D pixel art is some of the best in any recent game. Hollow Knight Silksong finally came out in September 2025 after years of one of the most talked about waits in gaming, and it delivered. You play as Hornet, a faster, more aggressive protagonist compared to the Knight from the first game, navigating a brand new kingdom called Farloom. Hornet was captured and brought to this unfamiliar place, and she has to fight her way upward through the kingdom to reach its peak, the opposite direction of the descent in Hollow Knight. The movement is noticeably more dynamic, with faster dashes and a combat style that rewards aggression. Hornet has a needle and thread weapon, and a new system called Tools that lets you craft and equip different combat and utility items found through the world. There are over 40 bosses in Farloom, and the boss design is a clear step up from the original, which already had some of the best bosses in the genre. Absolum. It's from the same people behind Streets of Rage 4 and TMNT Shredder's Revenge, and this is their first original IP. It's a fantasy rogue beat-em-up, a genre mashup that sounds weird but plays brilliantly. The world of Talum was shattered by a magical disaster, and a tyrant called Sun King Azra rose to power by enslaving magic users. You pick from 4 characters, Galandra the elf, Carl the dwarf, Cider the assassin, and Brome, a frog wizard, and fight through Azra's forces in a side-scrolling brawler with roguelite structure underneath. Combat is fast, combo-driven, and demands real timing. Blocking and dodging at the right moment matters a lot. Between rooms, you pick up rituals that modify your run, like boons in Hades. Die, return to your hub, called the Hearth, spend your crystals on permanent upgrades, and go again. The characters unlock gradually through the story, which drips in through NPC conversations and area lore.
The full arcade beat-em-up arsenal to unleash upon your enemies. Powerful hard counters, dodges, deflects, light and heavy attacks, and rare but devastating.
Hades 2. It's Supergiant's first ever sequel, and it surpassed the original in almost every way. You play as Melinoe, the daughter of Hades and sister of Zagreus from the first game. She's a witch trained in the arts of magic and combat, and her goal is to defeat Kronos, the Titan of Time, who has escaped captivity and imprisoned the gods of Olympus and the underworld. The structure is the same: roguelite loop, fight through biomes, collect boons from gods, die, return, and build toward permanent upgrades. But the depth is significantly expanded. Melinoe has 6 weapons, with Omega Form charged attacks, a mana system tied to magic use, Arcana cards that stack passive effects, familiars you can level up, crafting incantations, and 2 completely separate route paths through the game, downward into the underworld and upward toward Olympus. The story unfolds through dialogue that accumulates run after run, with a massive voiced cast and writing that's full of warmth and weight. That's the list. 15 games that prove indie games belong right alongside anything from the big studios. Every single one of these is worth your time. Drop a comment if your favorite didn't make the cut, and subscribe if you want more picks like this.